how to succeed on any diet, okay? And there are some key principles that no one's talking about, and we want to end diet wars. We want to end dietary tribalism, the do's, the don'ts, the 10 commandments, the emotional and psychological trauma if you go off your diet or you try something new. So dietary tribalism refers to the people to kind of identify them with a philosophy or group. We have an amygdala center that is tribalism, and we're always trying to compare, am I in the right part of the tribe or am I in the wrong part? Am I being excommunicated? And we have to understand that this is a tendency that often holds us back from experimenting with the diet strategies or the things that are going to help you succeed. This is me and my business partner. Matt Gallant, we founded a company 20 years ago. We are recovered dietary zealots. As you can see, he's a ketogenic guy, and I'm on a plant-based diet, and we started a company together. So you can imagine the fights, the arguments, the discussions. You know, it's like, hey, bro, you know, fats are the way to go. And I'm like, when I eat fats, like, it's a bad experience in the toilet. And he's like, you can't build muscle on plants. And I'm like, yes, you can. So was anybody getting an argument about their diet strategy? Did anybody lose family members, friends, business associates? Yeah, I've been there. I know how it is. But here's the reality that most experts don't want to deal with. 80% of people are confused about nutrition. Our job as advocates of this industry is to change this. 97% of dieters regain everything that they lost within 3 years. So the entire diet industry, which I've been following since I was 15 years old, there's the rise and fall of various diets. You know, they come in trends and waves, and you can kind of predict the next one. I think the next one's going to be the bug diet. Thank you, Klaus Schwab. Anyways, but it's leaving people lost because they're not developing a diet based on their individuality, okay? And so what happens, people start getting stressed about their diet. So here's the thing. About almost half the people in the world are trying to lose weight. Starvation is a problem throughout human history, and we've developed biological mechanisms to overeat and to store body fat, which is suboptimal for our aesthetics and our health and our performance. But these are genetic programs that helped us survive as species, and you need to understand this if you're going to maintain a healthy weight into your 70s, 80s, 90s, and above, okay? And about 92% of the population suffering from a vitamin deficiency. Now, here's a crazy thought. Just over half the people in the world have tried at least 6 different diets. How many people are in that category? How many people won't raise their arm no matter what because they're so embarrassed and they're even more confused? I thought so. All right, we're gonna fix that. So here, just stop the war and stop the need to identify with a particular diet category. I've learned tremendous things from people who choose different diet strategies, and they help fill the gaps because they're essential components in virtually every diet that we can adapt to the diet that's right for you. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's stop that. So another thing that you want to avoid, so how many people have had dieted for a social event, a particular, you know, it's a wedding, it's a high school reunion or whatever, and you go on a restrictive diet. There's a lady right over there. There's some honest people. Yeah, and you're like, okay, I got to lose this 10 pounds by this, and I got to get here, and you go on this starvation diet, and you're exercising every day, and you're pushing, and you're sweating, and you're in the sauna, and you're in the freezer, and you're like taking some weird supplements. And the reality is you're going to trigger that genetic response that are going to make suboptimal choices later on and make it much harder, and we're trying to avoid that for people. So, I've seen so many people in the bodybuilding. Now, just to understand something about bodybuilders, they're original biohackers. And the reason is they're trying to build an excess amount of muscle over genetic programming, and they're trying to reduce body fat to suboptimal levels for a cosmetic effect. So they're going against 2 evolutionary responses, and the worst bodybuilder in the world standing on stage is usually in better shape than anybody here will ever be in their entire lives. So there's some success principles that you can take, and there's some warning signs because a lot of people in the bodybuilding community go through these explosive weight gains. I did that myself. In 2003, when I competed at the Mr. Universe contest, after that contest, I gained 42 pounds of fat and water in 11 weeks. Because what allowed me to be successful on a diet, I didn't understand how to come out of it, and I activated all these triggers. I learned how to fix that, and I've been passionately speaking about it for the rest of my life to help other people avoid those challenges. Okay? So, we only got 10 minutes, so I got to go through here very quickly. I'm going to get past all this data points and get on to some good stuff. So, again, please avoid hyper-restrictive dieting. If you've looked at the latest research on too much fasting, for example, it has long-term metabolic dysregulation parts. Harvard's talking about crash diets, trying to avoid that sort of stuff. Just so you know, I have no business being a bodybuilder. I have terrible genetics for it. I really liked it, but it helped me discover a lot of things. So even if you have suboptimal genetics for, regulating your weight or being an endurance athlete or building muscle or whatever it happens to be, don't let that determine you from being your best self. Now, let's get into, when you choose a diet, you want to pick a goal. So you want to build muscle. You want to either lose fat, and I would suggest if you want to lose fat, concentrate on building muscle first because it's metabolically active. You might want to maximize athletic performance or cognitive performance. So a lot of people who have business careers, they're worried about making their brain work properly. And then biospan. We all end up here. And probably, how many people here are looking to live, to 100 years old and, having wild sex and ecstasy parties and all that sort of stuff when they're 100? I want to try that. Might look a little weird, but maybe it feels good at that age. I don't know. So here's the thing. Understanding your core values. And if you are going against a diet that is against your cultural and social values, it's not going to work. I did a 2-year raw food diet, and it worked really well for me. I'm probably the only bodybuilder in the world that's competed on a raw food diet. But socially, it sucked. You're the weird person at every party. And eventually I gave it up just for the social construct. I wanted to have more fun. The other thing is your emotional and psychological needs. So some people need to have a treat every week. Some people are like cyborg type mentalities that can go months and months and months and be completely restrictive. Understanding your psychological. I'm an emotional eater. I have a problem, in business, or I have a problem in my relationship or something. And I notice, what do? I'll turn on one of those binge shows and just start eating massive amounts of food. Anybody do that? So I know that if I'm starting to go off my diet and eat a bunch of things, I got to go talk to my psychologist because, I'm not dealing with my emotions. Staying true to yourself. The other thing, you'll probably heard a bunch of it here, nutrigenomics. By the way, we cover all this in the book about how to determine what these things are. I'm not going to go into nutrigenomics. It's a little bit too complicated for this, but it's something that you want to look at. Chris Geffen did a nice job on antioxidants and detoxification, understanding your food sensitivities. Are you a more protein person, a more carb person, a fat person? I metabolize carbs very well. I don't metabolize fats very well. That's why I do better on a plant-based diet. But I have to supplement with protein to ensure I have enough amino acids to make my muscles work. Environmental sensitivities and wide variance on that. You want to be able to check those because that could be disrupting your dietary success. Your macronutrients, of course, vitamins and A and D. For example, if you're dark-skinned, you need a lot more focus on vitamin D than someone like myself that can go out in the sun for 15 minutes and get all the vitamin D I need. Okay, so understanding how your genes play that, mTOR, autophagy. So some people are more anabolic by nature. They're going to have to be countering with autophagy phases or fasting. Some people, fasting is going to be very disruptive on their brain conditioning. So understanding just because it works for your favorite expert, it might be the opposing opposite for yourself. And then, of course, you get into methylation and things like that. Understanding your methylation about maybe you need more vitamin C than someone else, more vitamin B than someone else because of how you methylate products. Okay, so I'm going to get past this, and I want to get to, because we're running out of time, nutrigenomic test. Let's go here. This here, I think, is, please take a picture of this. It's in our book. If you look at this pyramid, the bottom of the pyramid is your spiritual and cultural commitments. For example, I have a lot of friends who are Hindus, and they're devout. They will not eat animal protein for any reason. Okay, so maybe animal protein is better for their genetics, but spiritually and culturally, they just can't go there. Maybe they have an Islamic faith and they want to do, the Ramadan, and they do their fasting cycles. It might be suboptimal for them, but that's important to them. So you want to recognize your cultural and spiritual commitments. Emotional and psychological needs, I touched on that. Do you need a diet break once a week? Do you need it never? Understanding that psychology and not projecting your psychology onto, your spouse or your kids, and understanding those differences and celebrating them, as opposed to feeling bad because, your spouse can eat chocolate cake any day of the week and you can't eat it once a month without getting fat. Just say, here's the chocolate cake. I'm going to go have my kale. Goals. So the goal, if you're building muscle or losing fat or trying to live a long time or have a great cognitive performance, or you're trying to be an athlete, you can't do all of these things simultaneously. Pick one, and your dietary strategy needs to go around it. That diet is going to be your calories, your macros, a diet that supports your nutrigenomics, that activates the genes that you want expressed and deactivates the ones that you don't want expressed, and your gut biome. Our company came to fame as the premier digestive health company in the world. We're the only company that I'm aware of that has 20 PhDs and master students that are using to develop our products and also to select our raws. So right now in the United States, 12% of the emergency hospital visits are gastrointestinal related diseases. So that's right up there with like heart attacks and strokes with people going to the emergency room. How many people have suffered from digestive distress? Almost everybody at some point. Choosing the right enzymes for your diet, the right probiotics for your microbiome. And as we age, almost everyone will benefit from adding a little bit of hydrochloric acid to their diet because we tend not to make enough of it. And then picking the supplements that are right for you and your genetics. So supplements are great. They fill the holes that are of the suboptimal aspects of the diet that fits right for you. And they will also fill the holes of your nutrigenomics. For example, you have trouble, like I'm a vegetarian, so I make sure I get extra B12 and B6 because I don't have that from animal proteins. I haven't eaten animals in over 20 years. And so I understand the limitations of my diet, my preferred diet, and I supplement around it. I supplement with an essential fatty acid from algae oil because I don't get enough EFAs and I don't use deep sea fish. I don't have a problem with it. It doesn't matter to me that somebody chooses that. I don't need to have an opinion about how I think that people should select the diet that's right for them and not project my values onto anybody else. That's really, really important. And then I feel very peaceful and I'm not worried. Food allergies and sensitivities, understanding those things that kind of take you out. These are the things you need to think of. And then the top of the pyramid is the lifestyle. What is the thing that you can sustain over time? And some people like to try new things more frequently, and some people just like to stay in one lane and just optimize within that lane. So my business partner, he likes a lot of variety. I like very little variety. I like continuity. So you just find what works for you and be okay with it, and then recognize that probably within your own family, you probably have a lot of variance, and that will help you resolve a lot of the conflict or decisions that you have to make. So again, these are the diet optimizers, calories and macros. I think bodybuilders figure this out better than else. Nutrigenomics is diet 2. I'm going to go a little bit longer here. Gut biome, of course, picking the right probiotics and enzymes, picking the right supplements for your life. These are the optimizers. Again, food sensitivity tests, really valuable. And then we'll get to the end here. So I know we didn't have a lot of times, but if you stop by the booth and check out our new book, here it is. It's called The Ultimate Nutrition Bible. It's essentially a choose-your-own adventure based on all of these things. It's 550 pages. It's backed by 875 research studies. You don't have to read the whole thing. You pick what's right for you, follow your journey. Thank you very much.